Do you suffer from a chronic skin condition such as psoriasis or eczema and nothing you've done has helped? Not all the antibiotics or topical steroids or biologics that your dermatologist or doctor offer you? Nothing helps you. Well, today I want to present a case that shows that this person's psoriasis was actually driven by a brain issue. So perhaps your skin condition that isn't healing with typical forms of care isn't healing because it's being driven by a primary brain issue via the brain-gut, gut-skin axis, creating a brain-skin axis. I'll dive into that with you today. I'm Dr. John Bartemus, and I'm putting the pieces together to help you live a life at optimal. Your chronic psoriasis or eczema may be being driven by a brain issue. And what I mean by that is that the skin isn't the primary problem, it's whatever is driving the brain dysfunction is the problem. And by brain dysfunction, I'm talking about potentially anxiety, depression, OCD, things of that nature. Let's dive into a case, a real life case today with a middle-aged female to show you what I'm talking about. So this female, her main complaints are anxiety and OCD, psoriasis that has been present for over 20 years, and also PCOS. So this is a case that already lets you know that there is significant metabolic dysfunction going on, significant physiologic dysfunction going on, because we have OCD, anxiety, we have PCOS, we have psoriasis. Three things that are seemingly unrelated, but the underlying common denominator that will relate them all to each other is physiologic dysfunction. So we need to find a deeper underlying cause or causes that are promoting these things that aren't being addressed by the dermatologist in this case. So I mentioned this person had psoriasis and has had psoriasis for over 20 years. So you may think, well, that's the primary cause, or the psoriasis has been there forever. Well, no, this person has had anxiety and OCD for longer than the 20 years, longer than they've had the psoriasis, and that predates it. So it's probable, based on history and medical record review and the workup, that the brain issues predate and therefore are a driver of the skin issues. And let's dive in further to explain why. Now, this person has a history that is very interesting from a brain standpoint. I won't give it all away right now. So the first thing we want to tell you is that this person has a history of being verbally abused. So this verbal abuse, is that on there yet? This verbal abuse has occurred from family. This verbal abuse has occurred outside the family, so socially. And this verbal abuse has occurred from bullies. And this has been lifelong. The verbal abuse began in young childhood with family, and then carried into school age with family and bullying, and then carried into adult age with family and other relationships socially. So this has been lifelong bullying, leading to lifelong, or the development of anxiety that has pretty much been lifelong because it started so early. So the anxiety and the OCD are brain issues driven by the abuse that she's been subject to her whole life, and the OCD is a compensation mechanism to deal with the abuse instead of face it and get it dealt with. And you can't blame her for it because she was so young, that was all she knew how to do. She couldn't get other help that way. So we've got verbal abuse, which becomes mental emotional abuse, which is a big deal, okay? Also, that bleeds into this person asking herself, why? Why am I having this anxiety? Why am I having this OCD? What's wrong with me? Am I broken? Okay, so questions of integrity as a person, like, am I good enough, right? Those are driven by abuse. And so also piled in there is that this person moved multiple times in her life. So when you're moving, that's another psychological stressor, because you're going from an area of comfort and a place that you know and friends you know and all of this to a brand new area with nobody you know. You don't know your way around. So you're not feeling comfortable, and the only people you do know are the ones who are abusing you. So that can create higher anxiety, higher compensatory OCD, etc. So all of this can be boiled down to one big word that we're all familiar with, but we kind of poo-poo it, and that word is stress. So this person has had high levels of stress lifelong because of the social interactions and family interactions and the abuse that has been going on. So that starts our axis off with the brain end. So we have the brain end as the beginning from all these stressful inputs. And the brain, as we've discussed in multiple videos, connects with the gut. So we can start to develop brain-gut axis issues. And so when we go down the brain-gut axis, that can lead to metabolic dysfunction, such as insulin resistance. And insulin resistance promotes androgen dominance, which promotes PCOS. So the brain-gut issues, the abuse, could mechanistically explain the beginnings of the metabolic issues that drive the PCOS. An interesting nugget from this history is this person was skinny all the way up to age 12, and when the bullying started, she started eating to compensate and get that dopamine kick to feel good after being bullied, and she started putting on a lot of weight from overeating to try and compensate for the bullying. And so that can drive the insulin resistance, which can drive the androgen dominance, which can drive the PCOS. So a brain-gut driver there. Now, to go from the brain to the skin, we have what's called a gut-skin axis. So once the gut is dysfunctional, we've also discussed how up to 80% of the immune system is in the gut. So when the gut becomes dysfunctional and the immune system becomes dysfunctional, there's the potential that you're going to lose self-tolerance, or the immune system's ability to tell the difference between me and not me. And that can become autoimmune disease, of which psoriasis is one. So this person develops autoimmunity against self, and in this case against skin, leading to psoriasis. So we can see that overall, the brain-skin axis is huge in this person's case, starting with the abuse from early life, moving, questioning whether self is good enough. All of that drives stress. Well, stress drives immune dysfunction along the Th2 phenotype, which promotes allergy and histamine responses, which are known to drive skin disorders. If she's also inflamed at the same time with insulin resistance, that can promote a Th9, which is Th2 on steroids, and it can also promote Th17, which is the arm of the immune system that promotes the damage to tissue and autoimmune disease. And then we have psoriasis. So here's a mechanism for brain-skin axis, meaning the abuse she suffered and the high anxiety and OCD and potential neuroinflammation associated chronically raise stress levels high enough, and cortisol is a big-time Th2 promoter. That tilts her immune system to being imbalanced down pathways that promote autoimmunity, and autoimmunity develops in this person as psoriasis. So if you are someone who has psoriasis or has eczema or has a chronic skin disorder, and none of the topicals, none of the antibiotics, none of the conventional treatments are helping you, and maybe you've even tried all the diets out there and those haven't helped you, perhaps the brain-gut gut-skin axis or the brain-skin axis is the driver in your case. If you have a history of mental emotional abuse, or a history of anxiety or depression, a history of head trauma, a history of anything that could drive neuroinflammation, then there's potential that the brain end is what started it, and then it manifested symptomatically, ultimately, as the psoriasis or eczema or skin condition. So this is a pathway, obviously, that's deep. It's a rabbit hole that's different for everybody. And to crack your case, you're going to need to partner with a practitioner that operates from the functional medicine paradigm, that understands physiology and biochemistry and all these mechanisms and pathways, so that they can put the pieces of your puzzle together and help you achieve a life at optimal. I'm Dr. John Bartemus, and I am one practitioner that does that, and I am privileged to partner with those of you out there who want to seek out this form of relationship and achieve a life at optimal.